You're listening to Lunch with the Finance Bunch, bringing money talk you can understand. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Lunch with the Finance Bunch. I am your host, Miss Charlene, and I have my co-host over there, DJ Bander. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Nice to see you, Char.
It's good to see you. We've got a great show lined up today, don't we?
We got a big show today.
Oh, yeah. But before we get to the show itself, I want to start talking about some things that I think are of interest to not just us, but to people in general.
For sure.
Right? And one of those things I'd like to talk about is, you know, when you own your own business, when you're an entrepreneur, and we talk about that a lot, like entrepreneuring. Is that a word?
I think so.
Okay, well, if it's not, it is now.
We just made it one.
But, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, some of the things that you want to do is you want to create a team around you.
Yes.
And you want to do that organically, and you want to bring people and put them in place who love what they do.
Exactly.
They don't want to be you. They love what they do.
And they
right?
support you.
And they support you, right? And supporting is a very honorable position to be in. You know, I have been the support for people my entire life. I love when I help someone else shine.
Yeah.
I love when I can do those extra things that can make that person look good, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you build a team, you need to have people in place who can help do the things that you may not be as good at or that, you know, would take the amount of time that you may not have to spend on it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I
So
agree.
what do you think about that?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's something we've discussed before. You know, a lot of people can, for a long time, think that they try to do it all.
Right.
And end up doing nothing
Yes.
because they're not able to find the productivity. You know, we've talked about this that I've, you know, brought, like for me, shout out to my business administrator, Jerome Abney. He's a great guy. And he, you know, has done so much to help me stay on track. You know, he sends emails like alert, this is due next week. This is due in 2 weeks. This is due in 3 weeks, you know, and, you know, building a team, you know, is something that's so important, especially even if you're, you know, basically at the top, like our guest is today, Jen DeLeon.
That's right.
You know, she's the chief of staff, but her role as chief of staff would only function with a strong community
Team
around
around
her.
her.
Exactly. And I think that that's something that's, you know, really important. And people need to focus on what they're best at, their best attributes, and focus on making them perfect. You know, it's like even with us, like we are running a full radio show here.
That's right.
And we have learned that, you know, we're great hosts and we're great at asking questions, and I do the music and stuff, but we're not, neither of us are amazing photographers. So guess what? We don't try to take selfies throughout the whole thing. We have John here, our amazing photographer.
Right.
And we have Brittany, who's a social media expert. You know, because even with our skills in social media, like we can't take that on as our full task.
Exactly. Because you wind up doing things that you are good at, but not great at, you know, a majority of your day. And there's a book called Good to Great that I absolutely love. And the reason I love that book is because it talks about in detail how if you become good at something, it is the direct enemy of you becoming great at something.
Oh, I like that.
Because you get caught up in the minutia of being good, and you also relax at good. Like, yeah, I'm good.
Yes.
Okay, you're good, but you're not great.
I think that's the other huge nugget that I would pull out of having a team is that, you know, it's so easy to get complacent in life.
That's right.
You know, like, it's almost like laziness is the natural state to strength and pushing forward. And so I think what's really, really important about the team is that, you know, they aren't going to have the same sympathy for your laziness that you do. Because it's like we're constantly justifying our weak behaviors to ourselves.
Exactly.
And that is, you know, it's like we should, you know, oh yeah, it's okay for me to have a little ice cream. No, it's not. Okay, you know, I can have like one more beer, like whatever. Like
no, it's not.
The brain literally like justifies
the
most insane things to itself all the time. And when you have a team that has no sympathy for that because their job is literally to make sure you do what you have to do.
That's right. To keep you on your toes.
They're gonna check you, like, you know, like I was just talking to my BA, I was just saying, Jerome, and he was like, yo, you've been doing a lot of great stuff with the show and with your clients, but guess what? You have some more releases you need to drop. I'm setting a due date on that. That's next week. It's like, oh yeah, right. Got to get that banged out. Like, got to finish that. Right. And it's like, if it was just me by myself, you know, you can just be like, oh yeah, I'll get to it, you know, because it's like almost, you know, people get lost in procrastination.
Right.
In
And
a lot of times.
And I think another reason I was so excited about having Jen come on, she is the chief of staff here at Dash Radio. I think another reason I was so excited about her coming on was because, what we'll get to hear a little bit of is the progression of where you can take a company if you started small, where it can go when your vision can be fully realized, right? So I'm sure when Ski started this, he had a vision in mind.
Absolutely.
And so you have to grow that vision and get it to a space where there's pieces of it you can hand off so that you can truly concentrate on the vision of it. And you can't be insecure in that the piece that you're handing off, it's that you're the only one who can do it.
Exactly.
And so what this shows is that in building a vision, you create a team around you so that you can hand off the pieces that they can do greatly so that you can do what you do greatly.
I love that.
Right? And so having Jen come on the show, I'm so excited because she is proof that you can have a huge vision like Ski has for Dash Radio and all of the many channels that are attached to it.
Yeah.
And he put someone in place that he knows, is familiar with, understands their strengths, and he is totally happy with having that person take on responsibilities that he used to have. Now he can concentrate on building Dash to be the great company that he would have it be.
Well, especially in his position,
Right?
I mean, he has to go to Switzerland and take meetings. And,
everywhere.
And he's
right?
all over the world. And it's like, obviously he, that role, he has to be able to trust it as much as themselves. It's like a president, a vice president.
Right. So the reason I bring that up is because what you don't want to do as you're an entrepreneur is get stuck in I'm the only one who can do this part. I'm the only one who can do this part. Don't ever get stuck in that, because if you do, your company will never be great. It will only be good, because you can't get to your great unless you release other parts. And they call that in the book seats on the bus, right? That might be the right or wrong seat on the bus for you. So if you're on my bus or on the Lunch with the Finance Bunch bus and you're just not comfortable in your seat, it might not be the right seat for you.
Well, I think it's really funny.
Right?
I think a lot of times, I agree 100%. And I think something that's really interesting is that for certain tasks that need to be delegated,
Yes.
people have no ego around it.
Right.
For example, nobody has an ego when it comes to April and you have to fill out your taxes. You see all the tax forms show up,
Right.
and you're like, "Oh my God, CPA.
Right.
Who's my girl? Who's my CPA? You need to call her right now."
Exactly.
Having a meltdown. Oh my God, thank God I have this CPA.
Right.
But then it's like the same thing happens inside your own business, and for some reason, people get all clenched up.
And
they need
coddle
to
it.
control everything.
Yes.
And it's like people, the way I look at it is like, I have a lot of skills, but one of them is not exactly being an administrator.
Yes.
So guess what? I'm not the administrator of my business. Right. Jerome is.
Right.
It's like, it's not that complicated.
That's right.
And the more you can take your ego out and be like, and not only feel glad that somebody else is playing that role, but be able to sit back and admire them for their skill set in that role that you lack. And
Yes.
look at what other people's strengths are, not as
Yes.
something taking away from you,
Yes.
but actually learning. Like when I see the way that, my BA organizes stuff, I'm like, oh, okay. Like I see how you get down with that. I see how your
Right.
brain works. Like my brain doesn't work exactly like that. So
Right.
let me see like how I can become a better person by learning from these things. And I can tell that somebody like our guest, Jen DeLeon, obviously must be very good at that.
Right.
To be in that role. Because
Exactly.
she has to know, okay, you know what? I'm gonna send this intern to do this. I'm gonna have my assistant do this, and I'm gonna handle this because this is like something I want to make sure has the personal touch.
Exactly. And so you see that as you structure and grow your company, the many layers that are there.
Yes.
That it is impossible for you to touch and be on every level at every layer. The best you can do is to assign the layers to the people who do them best.
Absolutely.
Right? And then meet with them and get updates on what they've been doing and what they do best, and you do what you do best, which is run the company. And I think there's a lot of ego around, feeling like you have to be in possession of every piece of that pie.
Which is so weird to me
Which
because
is so
it's such a
weird.
good look when I'm dealing with sponsors or people reach out to me and they have to deal with Jerome
Right.
It's like, yeah, nah, like you're not even on like speaking directly to DJ Bander yet. Like we're not even in that stage. You're talking to my dude. Like if what you say is correct, we can have a follow-up meeting. So it's actually a strong power position having a strong crew around you and a staff.
Yes.
You know, and so I think it's something that people should relish more in, you know, having a system. But, you know, a lot of our listeners, you know, they want to get to that level. They want to get, you know, their own business going. But I think a big part of it is you have to also, to do that, you have to get out of what I think the conundrum and the sort of the catch-22 that a lot of people is they want the freedom of being their own boss and having their own business.
Yes.
But they're comfortable with the ease of being a worker.
That's right.
They like the fact that like, okay, you know, everything is just told what I have to do today. I go into the office at 9:00. My tasks are right in front of me. And at 5:00, it's quitting time.
That's right.
Off to the happy hour, off to Netflix and chill, bed.
And you don't even think anymore about it,
and
right?
it's like, okay, yeah, they're mad that they have to be in the office for the whole time, 50, 60 plus hours a week. They hate that they can't set their own schedule. But like what a lot of people don't understand is like being the CEO and having your own, being able to like, okay, yeah, I can come into the office when I want. I can do this when I want. There's also a huge amount of burden.
And responsibility. There's a 24-hour responsibility attached to being a business owner, right? You're constantly thinking about your business. You're constantly working on it. You know, there's usually not a paycheck that is predetermined attached to it, especially when you first get started. You are hustling. You know, you are really grinding. You're perfecting your craft, but you're also putting in hours that you may not necessarily be getting paid for at this point. You know, so some of the things that we're going to hopefully talk to Jen about are how do you go from transition from being a business employee to being a business owner in the way that you learn what your value is on an hourly basis as a business owner versus being an employee, and because it's completely different.
Absolutely. And how you work relationships, because you know, relationships are a huge part of getting to the position that Jen is in, and you know, relationships are a key, you know, aspect of, you know, running any business.
Absolutely.
You know, and building that network and having, you know, not just credentials, but that sort of like overall respect that would make somebody want to invest in your business. Like, why should somebody want to give you $100,000, $500,000, millions of dollars to get your business going? That all comes down to credibility at the end of the day.
And networking. So I'm so happy that we're going to get an opportunity to speak with Jen.
Absolutely.
And talk to her about all these things.
I look forward to it.
Yes, definitely. So I'm Charlene.
And I am DJ Bander.
And we will be right back. Welcome back to Lunch with the Finance Bunch on Dash Talk X. I am Miss Charlene, and I have my co-host over there,
DJ Bander. How we doing?
We're doing really well. We're so glad we're back from our station break, and we have in the place with us today. Her name is Jen DeLeon, and she is the Chief of Staff here at Dash. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
We're excited.
I'm excited too. It's always weird to do interviews just because I'll usually do them.
Right.
And I'm like, what are you going to ask me?
It's all good. Nothing too consequential today. So.
Exactly. We just want to know, you know, from your experience here at Dash and your experience throughout your life, you've done so much, and we want to cram all of that in as much as we can to the little time we have here.
Hey, if they don't knock, I don't even know where they are. I just ran in here.
Okay, so our first question is, how did you get started in the music industry?
Oh, gosh. When I was 19, I just said I wanted to start doing interviews and started my YouTube channel and a blog. And then I had an event. No one really knows this. I threw this talent showcase for Haiti when all of that happened.
Yes.
And then
cool.
I had a bunch of artists come in. And when I was just thanking everyone, I just was saying, like, I'd love to do more of this and, you know, get more involved. And then the media sponsor I had at the time was like, would you want to do interviews for a company? We've never done them, but let's just try it.
Wow.
So that was when I was 19. And that was with a company called Go Where Hip Hop. And then from Go Where Hip Hop, I went to Hot New Hip Hop. And then Hot New Hip Hop went to Ski TV. And then Ski TV went to Complex. And then now I'm back at Dash, but then still with Complex and doing my stuff as well.
Wow, that's amazing. And it started with your wanting to give back.
Yeah, well,
right? As
it
a
was
part of
well,
it.
no, it really started when I just said I wanted to start my own blog and YouTube, and then I just started filming at my parents' house in my room and was like, let's see what happens from here. But then I got the opportunity to do interviews because of that benefit show I had and that media sponsor.
Wow, that is so nice.
And did you grow up here in LA?
No, I grew up in the north suburbs of Chicago.
Oh, okay.
So,
Chi-town, that's what's up.
yeah, I've been in LA for 6.5 years now.
Gotcha.
I feel like I'm from here though.
So your first opportunity after you did this, was that what brought you out to LA?
No. So I even have a crazy story with that. I came out here May 2012 because of Go Where Hip Hop, and then also just to visit two of my friends that had moved out here.
Yeah.
And I was doing an interview at Interscope for Kenny Smith's daughter, Kayla Brianna. And when I was sitting there, her manager was like, "Oh, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to have my own show." And he goes, "Why are you in Chicago?" I didn't know how to answer that. I just said, "I don't know. I'm from there." Like, no, usually when you tell people you want your own show, they're like, "Oh, what do you want it to be about?" But he was just like, "Why are you in Chicago?" Like, sorry. But I was like, okay, well, I don't know. So then I got on the train, and then I started praying about it and was like, am I supposed to move to LA where I know nobody?
Right.
Or do I stay in Chicago where my family is and where I've already built my brand?
For sure.
And I was like, God, please give me a sign. And then I swear when I got off the train, I started walking and there was this homeless lady like yelling and throwing shit at people. And I was like, don't look, don't look. And then I tried to go back to get on the other side. And then, you know, when you tell people like, oh, don't look now, and you 1,000% look. So I made eye contact with her and she said, follow your passion, and like this gremlin voice. And I'm like, oh shit, I think I need to go. So I called my parents when I got back to the hotel and said, I'm going to move to LA around Labor Day when Chris, that's my brother, goes back to school. So I'm just going to enjoy summer, try to find a job. Never found a job. Nobody called me back. And then Hot New Hip Hop reached out and said they were looking for a correspondent in Chicago. So I didn't know who they were. And then when I did it, I was like, can I get a job in LA? And they're like, we're not based in LA, we're in Canada. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to still go anyway. So I just packed my car and then I drove out here. So there was like no job, nothing in line. And then the first weekend I got here, I wanted to go to the mall and try to get a job at Aldo Shoes because I used to be a manager
Aldo
there.
Shoes.
Right.
So I went to the Burbank Mall. Sorry, I'm rambling, but it's like a long story.
Tell us.
And then I asked the lady, I'm like, are you guys hiring managers? Because I just moved here like 2 days ago and I need a job like so I can survive. And they were looking for a manager, and she said, come back Thursday so we can do your paperwork. Here comes Thursday, and I'm about to walk out of my apartment, and this weird number calls me. And it was Canada, but I thought it was the people from Hot New Hip Hop. So I pick up, I'm like, hey, Jason, like, how are you? He's like, this isn't Jason, this is Sorrow. I'm like, who the hell is Sorrow? Like, I've never talked to a Sorrow. And he's like, I'm the owner of Hot New Hip Hop. And he's like, are you busy? I was 1,000% busy, but I wasn't going to tell him that. So I went back in the apartment, and long story short, he goes, out of all the correspondents we hired in all the big markets, you were the only one who booked your own interviews, and you booked more than we did as a company. So I was hoping you were looking for a full-time job. So then I ended up getting the full-time job.
That is so cool.
Once I actually drove over here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is
then that's how it started.
Wow, that is so cool. Now, from your website and your IG, we see you supply church notes for services that you attend.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it seems like you've been doing that for a while.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm all about I'm glad you asked me that, because people usually don't like talking about like faith or church or anything. So the only reason I am as blessed as I am, or have reached like the level of success that I am at, is because of God and because of, you know, those church notes. So if you look at my phone, I have 3,000 notes on my phone. I write everything. Like, I'll lose my shit like if I don't have everything written down. And whenever I go to church or I watch a service, I write so many bullet points that you pretty much get the whole service in the bullet points. So I just started writing them, and I turned it into a book. And then instead of tithing at church, I take that money and put that towards the books to give to people. And that way I'm like, okay, here's my way of giving back. But then I send them through an email every Sunday. And it's crazy how much people tell me, like, I look forward to these. I used to not be consistent with them, like, at all. But I've been consistent every week this entire year. And then I saw how much my life changed once I was like, oh, I'm actually being consistent. And one of my friends asked me, he's like, why are you stressing out over like missing a week? I'm like, because that's the reason why like I'm blessed. I'm doing something where no one's paying me to do it. Right. Nobody asked me to do it. And I'm putting it into the industry. So like that email blast goes to all the artists I've interviewed, all the labels, management. And it's cool because on MailChimp, I can see who opened it.
Yes.
So when I see an artist sees it, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Well, you're reminded of me every week. But it's, and then like one time Currency wrote back and he's like, yo, like, thank you so much for these notes. And like August Alsina's done it. Like there's been so many artists who have said like, I look forward to this. And I think that's what's cool because it's bringing a new element and like my testimony into the industry that doesn't really have that. And then it's, you know, it's not forced.
Yeah, and I love that because when I go to church, I write a lot of notes too because that's the way I learn and remember.
Exactly.
So to see those bullet points, I'm like, wow, okay, because you can literally follow the whole service.
You feel like you watch.
You feel like you're there.
Everything.
Yes,
like, I write everything. So if I don't have your email, you guys can just give me it, and then I'll add it to the list, and you'll get it every Sunday.
Oh,
so.
definitely.
No, that's super cool. So religion for you, was that something that was instilled like in your home growing up?
No, not at all. I actually, my parents are Catholic, so my whole thing is I don't think it's about what religion you are. I think it's more about your relationship with God. So my parents are Catholic and like they forced us to go to CCD and I hated CCD. I thought it was so boring. I didn't like going to Catholic church just because it was like I'm not learning anything from it. Then my aunt tried to take us, my brother, my cousins and I to a Baptist church. I liked it more because there was more of a message. But then after that, I still was just like, when I came to LA, actually, the church I go to, One Church LA, I had 5 different people when I first moved out here to try to get me to go. And I don't like things being forced. Right. So that's why even when I have friends, I'm like, hey, if you want to go, cool. If you don't, I'm not going to ask you again because it's like you obviously didn't want to. So it took 5 people asking me. And then I finally went just by myself. And then I consistently started going just on my own when I came out here. So it definitely was never instilled like that or wasn't forced on me. It was something that naturally happened. And it really, my story is a whole, like, there's no other way I can say, like, that was all God. Like, I can't. And then so that's what made me believe in God more and then make it very known about my faith because I'm like, there's just no way. If I told you guys the stories of how I got certain opportunities, like it would just freak you out where I'm like, how can I not tell people like this was not me at all? I don't know how the hell that happened, like, but it did. And I have my whole story is that, like, it's creepy. Like the homeless lady one, it's like that times like 25, like with how I got actual like jobs and stuff.
Because of all the things you would think a homeless person would say to someone,
that's not it, right? And she was like throwing shit at people. I'm like, I'm scared of you. Like, I don't want to see you. And then she said it. I had, no, I've had so many of those. Like even when I got my internship with the Bulls, like I had tweeted something and just said, I want to work for the Bulls. And then they had DM'd me and they're like, oh, They would always retweet my stuff, and then I had reached out and said, thanks so much for responding. I tweeted, I wonder if the people who run the Bulls account will be at Derrick Rose's press conference. And then they messaged me like, why are you asking that, and why are you going to be there? And I kind of lied. I said, well, I'm doing an interview with Derrick Rose. I was just going to be part of the thing. And then I go, thanks so much for getting back to me. I've always wanted to work for the Bulls. If you could watch my latest interview, and that was my only interview I ever had, so I was totally lying. I'm like, if you could watch my latest interview with Lance Briggs, he was playing for the Chicago Bears. I'm like, I'd greatly appreciate it because I've always wanted to work for you. And so he's like, hey, it's crazy that you messaged us today because just this morning we talked about bringing someone to Bulls TV and your message came in. I know it's not on camera and it's not paid, but is this something you'd be interested in? I'm like, what the hell? I'm like,
of course I am, right?
So we met at Starbucks. They didn't put a like a job ad on the site and they just gave me it on the spot. And then I worked for them the year that the Bulls were fucking amazing and Rose got MVP and everything. Amazing. Like it was, but that's what I'm saying. Like I didn't work hard to tweet that.
Right.
It was just like I tweeted it and then it came back that way. So that's like how my whole story is. It's just like the weirdest.
So was that a little bit about how you'd say you got your start in terms of like the network that you built? Was it a little bit about being the right place at the right time? Was it sort of like growing up in Chicago?
I think because I mean I met people in Chicago, but the reason I have the relationships I have is because I'm very protective of them.
Right.
I don't go to artists or management for favors unless I know it's mutually beneficial. I guess I still help with like PR with artists, but like my relationships with all the blogs, if someone asked me for press, I would charge the people for my press services, but I was also paying out the blogs, like even if it was like $50 or $30, so many people ask for favors in this industry and there's nothing beneficial and then they try to pocket it. I always give back. I'm like, anything I'm getting, I'll screenshot what exactly like I made.
Right.
So they see I'm like, I'm not taxing you. I'm not making thousands off of you doing something, because I hate when people do that to me.
Right.
So that's why I'm very like, hey, can you do me this favor? And I'll cut you something, and then sometimes people will be like, don't worry about it. It's all good.
So it's mutually beneficial.
I make sure it's mutually beneficial. When I started doing interviews, if a publicist said only ask 3 questions or only keep it to 5 minutes, I only asked those 3 questions and kept it to 5 minutes. So I'm very like respectful of stuff and just always been transparent. So if something went wrong, I wouldn't try to sugarcoat or bullshit it. I'd be like, hey, I messed up on this or this happened. And then I always had updates. Like I always keep people in the loop. So even with Q, when he texted me, I'm like, there's all this stuff going on with Offset. Like I'm late, but some people would have just showed up late and not like told you. That's what I said.
And
so
we
I'm
respect
very,
that because it gave us an opportunity to see how we would do the interview, you know?
Yeah.
So we weren't just sitting around waiting. We absolutely knew when you were coming, and you walked in like on the dime,
ready to
you
go.
know, like exactly
like,
when you
let's
said
I
you'd
looked
be
at
here.
the time, I'm like, there's traffic, and I checked the traffic. I'm like, I'm not going to say 5, because I hate when people say,
5
I'm going to be
minutes.
5 minutes late. I'm
It's
like,
really
that does
15.
not mean 5 minutes. I'm like, let me just tell you, I am 20 minutes late. Don't think I'm going to come in like 10:05.
Yeah.
So,
But we're just happy you're here.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you mentioned, I mean, a couple things I think are really touched on. Like I noticed too when I was peeping your Instagram that you talk a lot about like your worth and your value, like what you charge for your services.
Oh
and all
yeah,
that.
no, I'm so transparent.
And I like that. And I think, so would you say it's sort of like a balance of like, we talk about this a lot on the show because a lot of, our listeners are entrepreneurs, they're trying to get their business going and they're thinking, so would you say it's a balance of not being too much of a me person, being like what you can offer the other person first, but with a combination of also being true to your value?
Yeah, okay, so the reason that came up was because one, there's some people like, we all know it, someone would be like, hey, this package is $5,000 when really, you never made $5,000 off that package ever in your life, but you're just saying that because someone has money.
Sure.
I have clients that I know are millionaires, sometimes billionaires, and I charge them what I would charge the next person.
For sure.
So that's why I put the rates on my Instagram, and I do it so people see like, no, this is just what it is, and if you don't want to pay it, that's fine. But it's about one, knowing your worth. I've done a lot of stuff for free. Like a lot. I probably just started charging people like in the last year or two. But I always did stuff for free. And then that's when I realized how much people were making off of my work, where I'm like, okay, I'm all about helping people. But if I know, like, it just happened. I had a client that they were hiring for like my one-on-ones. So they were referring their clients to me, and then like Instagram verification or Spotify playlisting. So for my one-on-ones, it's $150 an hour. It's on my Instagram. So somebody had
I like that. I
me.
saw that video.
Yeah.
You
Well,
gotta
it was
charge
just because I'm like, you're annoying me. Like the person emailing me, I'm like, I'm not lying. He's like, well, we paid. I'll tell the whole story. I didn't tell the whole story, but he's like, oh, well, last time we paid $80. First of all, I'm like, your friend paid the $80. It's one-on-one, not one-on-two.
Right.
And I only had his friend sit in it because when we were at the restaurant, my friend was like, oh, my friend's here. I'm like, where? And he's like, over there at that. I'm like, that's so awkward. Like, just have him like sit here. It's cool.
Right.
So I was being nice. Like, I didn't want his friend there because it was like he was asking me questions.
Right.
And that was a year ago. Like, a year ago, I wasn't working as the chief of staff at Dash. I wasn't working with little and like doing all this booking
price
where it's
went
like
up. That's it.
and it didn't go up because of it's just like the time. I'm like, I really
Your
like,
time is valuable.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't just sit there. I'm like, and then but don't get me wrong, 80 is a lot to me. Where it's like I appreciate any dollar. So it's not to say like, oh, $80. No, anybody can use $80.
Right.
I can use $5. It's just if you're gonna pull me away from everything I have to do, that's what it is for me to actually like stop what I'm doing.
No, and I think that's a
Where it's
good
like-
point because a lot of times, people have these lot of ideas, but a big part of starting business and getting anywhere is also not being afraid to say no because somebody can't compensate you.
And that's
Right.
the thing too. Like in the beginning when, I was unemployed, like no one knows I was working on unemployment. I was Ubering. Like that's my next YouTube video where people are like, what the hell? Like you Ubered. So at that time,
The real life.
yeah,
Real life.
if that person said, oh, I can only do the session for $80, I would have been like, yeah, I will do it, just because I needed it at the time where it was like I wasn't stable, and I didn't have income coming in. But it's just more about like, you just got to know your worth, and then you can't spread yourself too thin. Like, that's where I made my mistake. I was trying to do too much at once. And then if you say yes to someone for like half your rate, then like, so if I told you, oh, my one-on-one's 50, and then he asked me for a one-on-one, I'm like, no, it's 150. And you say, well, she told me you paid 50. I'm fucked, because I'm like, well, now everyone knows it's 50.
Totally.
I can't. That's why I put it out there. And then when it goes up again, I'm going to put it out there and say, hey, it went up to this. Like, don't email me, like, unless like you're ready for that,
makes
because
sense.
it's a lot of back and
forth. And it stops the back and forth negotiation that goes on,
Yeah.
right? Because you can spend 10 minutes of the hour negotiating with the person,
and that's a
if
waste
the time
of 10 minutes.
exactly,
Like,
and you
a
need that
waste.
to get, do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Now, I did have a question about, with all that you do, how do you decide how much time you spend on things? Because that's hard for people. Like myself, I get completely. I think I have a plan.
Yeah.
And then it just gets blown to hell, right? And then, so how do you
The last
stay on
48
task?
hours.
Plus, we got an
right?
ADD society.
Yeah,
so.
well, and I'm
Yeah.
probably ADD too.
I wish I had my planner in here. I threw it in my office. I can't, like, my planner is so color coordinated and very like, so it's to the point. So before, like I said, when I had more time, I was fine if someone was late. If someone's late on calling me, like even within 10 minutes, and then they don't tell me, I will purposely not pick up when they call me 20 minutes late, just because it's like, no, I blocked out that time and I have this other stuff, even if I am free, because I'm setting the standard of don't call me late or meet me late, because I do plan stuff, because I would be late for other meetings or calls just because someone else was late. So when people are late, I just say like, hey, this was the time I had. I don't have time for the rest of the day, so let's do something for next week or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do it by priority. So like my routine is the night before, I'll first write it on my phone and write, this is what I have to do today. Then I'll transfer it to my planner, because I don't like messing up my planner. Or like, if you guys saw it, you really would be like, you're on crack. Like, if you see it.
That's like your best friend.
Yeah,
Right.
no, my brother, he's visiting, so he dropped me off. I'm like, I need to write in my planner as soon as I finish these meetings, because that's why everything's kind of like all over the place, because I didn't write it down. So I do it by priority. Before, I used to respond to emails within like 5 minutes, no matter who it was. Now I'm like, as long as I answer within a day, like we're fine. I used to make everything urgent. Not everything is urgent. I'm like, so pick what is actually urgent, do that, and then don't beat yourself up if you don't get everything done, because I would be so hard on myself where I'm like, oh, I wanted to finish all this today, and then I wanted to be here at this time. I wanted to make this much money by this age, and I'm like, yeah, that plan did not work, like, at all. So staying organized and writing everything down, and then building your team. I used to like, I mean, I'm still like that, where I don't like passing off certain tasks, but then I have 2 people I really trust with my stuff now, that I'm like, okay, I don't have to have my hand on everything, and then that helped me stay on top
No, that's
of
big.
stuff.
We talked
That
about
is-
that.
yes.
We talk about that a lot, in the last episode, where, it's also about knowing your strengths, right? Like knowing what you're good at and mastering that, instead of trying to be a jack of all trades, because sometimes it's like you try to, wear every hat, and then you just start fumbling. you know?
Yeah, it's so stressful. I'm like,
And to, and that for me has caused me to have to interview people better, to make sure that the person that you are bringing on actually is that person, because when you're doing some of these tasks, and it takes me or DJ Bander longer to do something that someone else who's more experienced can do quicker, right?
Yeah.
So you're really defeating the purpose by trying to do everything yourself.
oh yeah, no, I definitely don't try to do that anymore. I'm like, I can't do this. And I have Jocelyn and Carmen here, and I feel bad. I'm like, wow, I just copied them on like 10 emails before I even came in here, because I'm like, while I'm doing this and then the other stuff, I'm like, at least I know those tasks are getting done.
Taken care of.
And then,
So would you say that the majority of your time right now is taken up by being chief of staff over here?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say it's probably like 80-85%.
How would you describe your managerial duties, basically? What does that mean? What does it mean to be chief of staff?
Everything.
Of Dance Radio?
Everything, I mean everything. It's crazy. I love it. I'm so happy to be in the position. When Ski brought me on and then had told everybody, because before I was just doing the booking for the shows.
Right.
But then when we had our team meeting, he's like, hey guys, Jen's chief. Even when he told me, I'm like, what the fuck does chief of staff mean? Like, I didn't know. Like, what does that
job
mean? And I'm like,
description?
he's like, Google it. It's like the person right next to the CEO. He's like, not like an assistant. It's like you really run everything. So I did look it up because I don't care about titles. I'm like, you know, there's some people who get very like lose relationships.
It's a good title. It's a very presidential title, you know.
Yeah, no,
Chief
that's
of Staff's
what I was
usually
like,
in the White House. So.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. And so chief of staff,
good.
he's like, Jen's basically me now because I want to focus on, you know, the funding and our investments.
Right.
Ski's favorite line in every email is adding in Jen. Like she runs everything. And then I take that. So it's pretty much like running everything.
Right.
No, for sure.
That's cool though. How did you meet him?
Hot New Hip Hop. So in 2013, I wanted to do an interview with him. So I did an interview for Hot New Hip Hop. And then they knew that I wanted to do TV. So then his team was like, hey, we have our TV show. I'm like, oh, can we do the behind the scenes for Hot New Hip Hop? So he let me do the interviews with the artists for Hot New Hip Hop to get the exposure on the blogs. But then from there, they're like, wait, you want to do TV, don't you? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, why don't you come over here? And then so I started doing stuff for the TV show. So I would produce, but then also be the face of Ski TV, like the internet content.
Right.
So he would do all the TV stuff, and then I would have our segments for all the stuff on YouTube. And then ever since then, we always worked on stuff. Even when I left Ski TV for a little bit, he would always call me with different like branding opportunities that we did one for like Essential, but Ski has all these relationships that I don't even understand. Even when he puts me on emails, it's like so nonchalant. He's like, hey, like somebody named Travis emailed me. So this was yesterday in the midst of the chaos of stuff going on with this Offset event this weekend. And then it's like, oh, Ski told me to reach out to you, blah, blah, blah. It was like an LGE email, but it was like T-Mobile. And like we're planning something, but it's just like he's always connecting me with different brands where I'm like, what are we supposed to do with this? Like, and then I just like figure it out. I'm like, okay, but now that he has me there in place, he can focus on what's important to run the company. But then I'm there to get all like the brand integrations and then all these different partnerships. And then I have my team in place now where there's a lot of change happening at Dash. And I think people can see it now. Like once I've been starting to send emails, I'm like, no, this isn't like a college frat house anymore. It's like, it's corporate as fuck. Like everything's going to change, but I love it. I feel like when I'm not doing 25 things and I'm being lazy, or if I'm too calm and there's nothing going on, I'm like, I'm not doing it enough, or I'm 1,000% forgetting something because it's never just calm or like nothing going on.
Right. But you know, in the short time that I've been here, I've seen the change.
Oh, nice.
You know, so from the
what
time
have you
I
seen?
Well, it's very organized.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very professional. And when you come in, you know who's in the building. You know, and all of that, and all of that's important. You know, and you can tell there's a schedule. You know, you're in at a certain time, you're out of at a certain time. So it's a respect for the space that you're using for the time you have it, to make sure that everyone gets that space in the time that they have it. So that's very helpful too.
Yeah.
I think when people are more organized, and the ship runs better. It makes people act better. You know you have to be here at a certain time. You only have the studio for this amount of time, so you use it and you value it more.
Yeah, and it's so funny because before it was just kind of, and there's nothing wrong with being laid back, but I was just like, I knew some shows were like rude, so we kicked them off because I'm like, I cannot, it's not worth it for me to hear like my entire staff complain about the same show. So I'm like, why are they still here? Right. Like, we don't know. I'm like, okay, no. Like, tell them if this happens one more time, like they're done, and I don't want to hear it, and I don't care. Like, that's the thing. It's like I've managed a lot like throughout my life, and then even my own things. So it's like I'm a very fair person, and I'm extremely nice and like, fair. But then when someone takes advantage of anything with Ski or Dash, that's when I'm like, there's no more chance after this one time, because we only want people, like you said. Like, I appreciate the fact that you even said, oh, you have to be in at a certain time. Like, unfortunately, there were some people who are not here anymore that didn't understand that and would think it's not a big deal. And I'm like, no, it is a big deal though, because there's other shows and all this stuff.
And of course, as you get more corporate and as Dash grows, so does your responsibility to answer to all these new corporate partnerships, which is a cool double-edged sword too, because while there's pressure on that side, you yourself are building your own personal employment equity with these relationships. So that's really cool. And so do you find that you've grown, basically helped to grow Dash in terms of that? When you say it's getting more corporate and you see that, like, where do you see what you've accomplished so far for Dash, and like where do you want to see Dash go over the next few years?
I would say that Dash is going to be really big, especially with all the different partnerships we have. I think it's going to be not even just with radio, because we are going to expand back into TV and having video content and getting all these different stations. I think that all these different brands and companies are going to want to come here, not for just like to have a radio show, that experience, but it's like it's adding this cool element and being part of a family that has so many different things to offer. Yeah. And I just know that one day this company is just going to sell for a lot. It's just, that's just going to take time, but it starts with the baby steps. We can't get there until we clean up everything internally and then focus on the next thing. But I love the change that has happened, and we have such a great team, and then Ski has a great board and investors behind it that I think people don't really understand how much work is put into it. Like, even when I look at what I manage on a day-to-day, I just told Ski, I'm like, I can't even imagine what your stuff is like, because I want to throw my head through a wall like every 5 minutes with everything that's going on, and his is probably even more intense because he's dealing with higher level things. Like my stuff is still extremely important, but it's not dealing with investors. And I like looked at it, I'm like, how did you get that many people to give you that much money like over time?
Right.
And then I look, I'm like, I couldn't even get people to give me like $10 like for like a thing, let alone like millions into a company, where it's like, I'm glad that I'm able to take that stress off of him. So he can focus on that and keep our building.
So that's interesting that
Right.
so you did mention, that's kind of interesting question. You mentioned the idea of eventually selling Dash. Like, is that the ultimate objective? I know that you guys have gotten a lot of like private funding. It's that versus like, so you're seing yourself merge with a larger conglomerate?
Not that. Yeah, not that we would sell and Dash would go away. I think it's one of those like Spotify just bought Sirius, I think.
Right.
But see, Sirius didn't go away. They're just, now they became bigger. Like, I think it's going to be something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Totally. A Spotify or Pandora or whoever is just going to want to get involved.
Totally. Which, of course, we just give it that much more
Exactly.
visibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what's
amazing.
up.
And you guys get an opportunity to, where they say, write your vision and make it clear. Because once you do, then people can see and understand your vision, and then they want to become a part of it. Exactly. And I can see how this has just grown and grown and grown. It's just getting bigger and better. Yeah. And it's exciting times here at Dash, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to find out, now there's a lot of people out there who would love to have a radio show. And so what advice would you give someone who wants to have a radio show or a podcast?
I would say do it because you actually have always wanted to do a radio show or a podcast, and not because everybody is doing it.
Right.
That's the biggest thing when people, by the way, go to Isaac, not me, for anything for like shows. Isaac's there to be the,
Yes.
But I think a lot of people want to do it, have a show or have a station because it sounds cool, but it's more than just, you can't just do it just because it sounds cool. You have to actually do it because you're going to put the work into it.
For sure.
And like have a plan. Don't come in and just say, I want to have a radio show. Like, what is that radio show? Why are you different? Like, what's your schedule going to be? Like, are you going to have video? Like, just be organized. And that goes for everything in life, where it's like, if you want to do something, don't just go to someone and be like, hi, like, I'm a new artist.
Well, I love that. I was telling one thing, I was just talking about with Shar. I mean, I was very impressed with the amount of hours that it really takes to do a radio show,
it's work.
I don't even have a radio show.
This is my first radio show. So, and I think that that's an element too with society. I made a status recently and said, if you aren't putting 40 to 50 hours a week minimum into your craft, don't ask the universe why you haven't seen results.
Exactly.
And so I just feel like it's a real like no work me culture right now, especially in the youth millennial. And I'm sure you run into that a lot. Like in your position.
Yeah.
So, I think it'd be great for you to give some advice to like people who are listening who are like, I want to make it happen. Obviously work ethic would be something you'd emphasize,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, no, if you want to make it happen, you can't expect people to do it for you. Like no one's going to care about your passion and your dream or your goal as much as you do. So who are you to go to someone else or get mad at somebody else because they don't want to help you, because everyone has their own thing.
Totally.
So you got to be able to willing to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
That's what.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I like that answer. Thank you. Because I know a lot of times people do think that it's just so, they see us on the radio or hear us on the radio and they will look at the video and they think it's so easy. They don't understand the work that goes behind
Instagram
it.
is seriously highlights like, well, I post my bad stuff. Like whenever something bad happens to me or I'm struggling, I'll post it. But overall, Instagram is like just the good moments.
Just the good
like,
moments.
No one has good moments all the time, like ever.
Right.
So yeah, it's a lie.
Now, how do you, you talked about getting into the industry at 19, pretty much, and then now you're here.
Yeah.
What type of advice would you, now that you're here, give Jen, who was 19 and getting started?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. One, it's not going to happen when you think it's going to happen or how you think it's going to happen.
Right.
I swear I had so many goals where I had my planners from like 2011 and I'd write my goals in my planners and then I highlight the goal when I achieve it. So I thought like I was going to achieve certain things by the time I was 25. I'll be 29 this year, but I think that a lot of people get discouraged because an opportunity comes and you think it's going to be the biggest opportunity and you think it's going to be what gets you to the next thing, and it actually was like the worst thing ever that could possibly happen to you. And then you get an opportunity where you least expect it. So I kind of tried to just stop planning and thinking it's going to happen a certain way, and was kind of like, you know what, just do what you need to do and then it's all going to fall into place. So I stopped putting timelines on when things were supposed to happen. So don't put a timeline because you don't know what God has planned for you, and you might think something is supposed to happen and then you get mad when it doesn't happen, but it really like works out for your best interest.
Well, Jen, it's been a pleasure having you on the Finance Sponge. Would you like to tell our listeners where they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, so my email is info@jendeleon.com, and all my social media is just Jen_DeLeon. I know no one knows how to spell my last name, so it's DeLeon. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being here. You're tuned in to Lunch with the Finance Bunch, and we'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. We're back. I am DJ Bander with Miss Shar, and you're listening to the Finance Bunch here on Dash Talk X. What an interview that was.
Oh, man. You talk about dropping nuggets, right?
So many gems dropped today.
She was amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I got a lot from that interview with her. I got a lot from it. You know what's a running theme, have you noticed, with our guests? Is that all of them talk about being givers.
Yes.
Like giving, like walking into a situation and looking at it from the how can I give perspective
and
versus
we've talked about
what's
that.
In this for me, what can I take from someone,
and
right?
I notice so much when I follow these big entrepreneurs, the Brent Cardones, the Gary V's, the Mark Cubans.
They're givers.
They're givers. The giving, what you offer is such a recurring theme.
Yes.
And it's just great when you hear from somebody like Jen in that position you have staff, like how she built these relationships, how she built her relationships back in Chicago with the Bulls.
And how she respects her relationships and she doesn't sell them out.
Yes.
That's very important. You're not building a network of people so that you can sell them out. You're building a network of people so you have a community to network and flourish in, right?
Absolutely. And another thing that she talked about, which is a theme that we've discussed, and it's something very important to our listeners, these up and coming entrepreneurs, is know your worth.
Yes.
You have to understand what your value is and what you're willing to charge for that, and that you have to charge something.
Right.
And to understand the balance of that. And and you see how even somebody in her position getting to that level as she says, it's still a struggle. She's still always going between, offer this much versus this much, and there's conflict around them, but yet she makes sure that she's steadfast.
And respecting her own time and respecting the time of others.
Yes.
That was a big deal because she told us exactly what time she could be here.
Exactly.
And she was here.
Right.
She told us how long she could stay, and she did. And she gave everything we asked for in the time that she was here.
Yeah, I like that she was when people don't call her, she makes a meeting at 10 o'clock and she hasn't heard anything and it's 10:20. She's like, nah.
Right.
Because
you disrespected my time.
Yeah.
And my time is valuable.
And it's very important to be like that. It's very important to, to hold your own when it comes to that. And it was great, I think, that Jen was able to drop those gems for our listeners, because a lot of people, I think, struggle with that, with understanding how to value yourself. And if you don't take yourself seriously and you don't take the value seriously, nobody is going to invest and want to work with your business.
And also, because someone isn't running around touting all of their strengths or all of their talent doesn't mean that they're not multifaceted.
Exactly.
And so what I learned from her is that she's very comfortable in the fact that she's multifaceted, and she's grown these areas of her personality, and we find value in all of them and how they come together. And now she's the chief of staff here.
Totally.
Right. So don't take the complexity of who you are and belittle it, because you are who you are because that's who you were created to be, right?
Yes.
So embrace that. And you never know, you might become chief of staff somewhere one day.
And it was very interesting that she also touched, on how important religion is to her. Faith
is
and,
to her.
And that she, I didn't even realize that about her, that, she has these relationships with the churches, and that she's, she believes that she's been guided by, some of the things that she's been blessed with, that the universe is blessed her with.
She doesn't take, you hear so much, it's so refreshing, because you hear people so much say, oh, I did this, I did that, me, my, I, me, my, I. And it's just so refreshing to hear when someone say, because you hear that in the church all the time, like, this was given to me because of God. God graced me with this. But to hear someone in this industry acknowledge that there has to be a higher power, and her higher power is God, and she knows that's where her blessings came from.
For sure.
And she's actually communicating that and making that a part of her brand identity. I have so much respect for
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's so important, because you have to be strong with your values.
That's right.
Especially in the entertainment industry, because it's just so easy to get lost in the shuffle and the jive. It's part of the reason why I never ended up like really living in Hollywood, because I like to come to Hollywood and I like to take meetings. But sometimes I just like to, because it can become all consuming.
Yes.
And you don't want to necessarily become completely entrenched, in the, and that's another thing that I want to stress to our listeners, is that it's really important for people to understand that, if you have a very self-centered me attitude, and you're just one of those people who's just going to do anything to succeeding it to the top, you're going to find that there's only so far that will get you.
Exactly.
Like at the end of the day, like people are not going to trust you, people are not going to respect you, and it's going to catch up with you sooner or later. I think it's really important for people to understand that while being a giving person is something that will pay dividends. We love dividends here on the Finance Bunch.
We love dividends,
and that's something that will pay dividends for a long time, right?
Exactly. It's to develop relationships and keep them organic and respect them, and they will pay dividends at the end, because you never know what person you meet on your way up the ladder.
Absolutely.
That you may meet while you're still walking up that ladder, or on your way down.
Exactly. And we want to make sure that, the people who are listening know that, we're really interested too in your questions and your ideas around these topics, like what we talked about today with Jen. So make sure that you follow us on the Instagram at The Finance Bunch.
Yes.
I'm at DJ Bander, and follow Charlene as well at Charlene Sistrunk, I believe.
Yes.
And make sure that you guys ask us questions, drop comments drop us, your questions in the comments on our latest post. And, let us know the kind of things you are struggling with in your life around your business, and what you would like us to help you accomplish in this amazing new year of 2019.
Absolutely. We love to ask our guests questions coming from you. So make sure you put questions in there that you'd like to have us answer, and we will do so.
Sounds good.
Well, this was another successful show, DJ Bander. I'm really excited about this one.
Absolutely.
So we look forward to seeing you. Well, we look forward to having you listen to us at 12 o'clock noon.
That's right.
On Dash Talk X.
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday, we're right here.
That's it. On Dash Talk X. See you soon. Thank you for watching, everyone. Be sure to find us on Instagram at The Finance Bunch, and listen to us every Tuesday on Dash Talk X.